Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call our February County Council meeting to order. If you would, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is our auditor's financial report.
Started the beginning general fund balance of $5,074,770. You didn't have any January requests or approvals, and you have 3,200 requested on today's agenda. Didn't have any miscellaneous expenditures yet this year, so the available for appropriation is $5,074,770. We did receive the municipal election reimbursement from West Lafayette, so the only one we're waiting on is Dayton, and we'll be following up with them. Overall, at 4.9% of revenue collected, and of course we don't receive property tax until later in the year, so that will affect that number. And the only thing I wanted to point out on the fund balance report is just that we updated the minimum balances on the funds to reflect the changes that you made at budget time. So that's all I had today.
Any questions for Jennifer? Hearing none, we'll move on to our treasurer's report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We ended the month of January with a $168,446,561.95, with a total interest of $697,971.14. The average interest rate and the weighted average rate was 5.59%, with the general fund receiving about 59% of the total interest. That's all I have for today.
Short and sweet. Any questions? Hearing none. All right, thank you. Next, do we have any public comment concerning any agenda items before us this morning? Hearing none. The next thing we have is our resolution 2024-06-CL for the innkeeper's tax.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-06-CL, a resolution distributing county share innkeeper tax funds.
I'll second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, a second from Councilman Murray to approve the Resolution 2024-06-CL for the innkeeper's tax funds. Doug, would you like to make some
Sure, this one's
remarks about this?
this one's pretty straightforward. It allocates $115,000 from your innkeeper's tax share to Greater Lafayette Convention and Visitors Bureau for the purpose of funding a destination asset needs assessment to determine market strengths and weaknesses, potential areas of growth, and a strategy for the development of the tourism, convention, and hospitality sector of the county. And then it adds language just saying they'll come and report on the progress as you reasonably request.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you have any additional information that you wanted to share with us?
Give those to you.
Those will be entered into the official record.
I did something official.
All right, very good.
That's all I have unless there's any questions.
Any questions from council?
I'd just like to say thank you, Joe. The information that was sent to us regarding the outcomes of the results of the study at other locations throughout the country that they've done in was very insightful for me. I understand the information is not readily provided out for obvious reasons, but the information that was publicly available based on the recommendations of this study was very helpful for me to understand
Well,
kind of what
good.
you're
It
looking
was
for.
not a short read.
No, it wasn't. It was a bit of 30-plus pages.
So I appreciate you reading through it and
stuff. So I'm excited about getting going with the study and seeing what we can do. So thank you all very much.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion from council? Hearing none. Resolution just a straight up. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have ordinance 2024-03-CL.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2024-03-CL.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Vernon to approve the ordinance 2024-03-CL for pledging the LIT revenues to the Park East project bonds. Discussion. Doug?
Yeah, so on the procedure, this will be what we sort of call first reading. That's how we do it. Technically, you just have to introduce it, and it can't be on the same day as you approve it. So you should just follow the first reading process, but you'll notice there's no signatures for first reading on this one. This overall project has to do with joint funding between the county and the city of Lafayette for the Park East project, and I think Tom can tell you more about the project, but in terms of the process, the council's role in this is fairly limited. This would be a pledge of sort of what we used to call EDIT funds as backup to the bond payments that the city's going to take out. And I say backup because the expectation, and it looks like the strong financial likelihood, is that the money's going to get paid out of TIF funds by the Redevelopment Commission from the Southeast Industrial TIF. And the income stream seems more than sufficient to get through that without needing any lit payments, but I guess you get a better rate on the bonds if this is pledged as backup. The total amount is, well, I had it as 14 million. I think they're still looking at, our share is 13,400,000. I don't know how much you want in terms of background on the overall process, which is a lot more complicated. It starts with the Redevelopment Commission has already made a declaratory resolution saying we want to do this. We want to pledge the money to the bond payments. They are also agreeing to a situation where there's going to be a carve-out of the current TIF area, and that's going to be it's going to come out of our current TIF, and then the city of Lafayette, this is one of those shaggy dog stories, but since we adopted this TIF district, the city lines have moved, so the piece that we're carving out as the Park East project is now in city limits, and they're going to create a new TIF district that's going to last for 25 years. In exchange for what we're doing here, the County Redevelopment Commission is going to get 50% of the revenues generated from that new area, which sort of piggybacks on our current arrangement with Lafayette with our Southeast Industrial TIF and their McCarty TIF, which are tied together with a joint economic development agreement to where we split 50% of the combined proceeds as TIF revenue for our combined, for the combined TIF district. So the Redevelopment Commission is approving that sort of swap of land to create the new TIF district. That has to go through area plan, and if approved by area plan, it has to be approved by the commissioners, and if all that's approved, then it comes back to the Redevelopment Commission for a hearing and final approval. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and the city, meanwhile, has a parallel process going on for their piece of it. None of that really matters to the council. All you're doing is saying, we pledge money from our EDIT funds if there's not enough money from the TIF revenues.
And that's just our share, right?
Right.
That we're
So, yeah,
backing up. We're not backing up the city's share. with the EDA funds.
Right, so
Okay.
there's two series of bonds, they've split it up, and one series, a Series B, has to do with the county's agreed participation, and that's what we're backing up.
Good morning, and thank you, council, for your time previously as I've met with you to discuss this. Also, Jason Simler from Baker Tilly is here as well if there's any detailed questions that you have in regard to the bond process itself. But Doug did a really thorough job, and this is relatively new because, you know, these TIF funds are typically budgeted through the Redevelopment Commission. And so we've, as Doug mentioned, we have two TIFs that we share equally with the City of Lafayette. The Redevelopment Commission meets each month, each year, and approves the projects for which those funds are going to be spent. A lot of those projects are joint projects with the city as well, just like the one we're talking about here for Park East Boulevard. So in our previous meeting, and I put one in front of you, you have kind of a legal size document with the spreadsheet in which I outlined on the right-hand side of that some of the projects that we have using TIF funds going forward, as well as the importance of this document is to illustrate at the bottom the expected revenues within, and these are just our portions of those two joint TIFs, and with really conservative estimates of growth. And then I compared that to the projects that we have moving forward, as well as added the bond payment in to that. And you'll see that, the revenue far exceeds, the expenditures over the course of the remaining life of this TIF. And again, we're expecting that the TIF is coming to an end in 2030. That's the last year that we expect revenue from this TIF. And the bond will obviously be paid off with that. In regard to this particular project, further detail about it, as some of you may have noticed, the section of Park East Boulevard between 38 and Haggerty has been completed. It was completed last year. This is the section between Haggerty and McCarty. Okay, and so that will connect 38 to 26 right there at Mike's Car Wash. This project, the engineering estimate was around $30 million for this project. We were very lucky, and bids were open last month, and they came in at 21.5. So that's significant. So that greatly reduced the amount that we needed to borrow to do half of this project with the City of Lafayette. But as Doug mentioned, in turn, for paying for half of this project, the city did, and I did pass out a map showing the geographical area of this new dedicated TIF that will then open up area for development, and then that will give the county additional revenue well beyond the existing TIF, again, which ends in 2030. That'll take it to 2049. So we'll have ongoing revenue in the long run. So it's an overall win for the county, and obviously it's an important project for economic development in that area.
Okay, any questions for either Doug or Commissioner Murtaugh?
Or Jason.
Or Jason. Yeah, the real expert in the room.
Yeah, the real expert, yes.
Any discussion? Roll call for,
Yeah, just because that's how you normally do it.
yep.
Dolum,
Yes.
Vernon,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Basham.
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Underwood.
Aye.
That ordinance passes 7-0 on first reading.
Yeah, and then you could just set it for hearing in your for final approval on your March hearing, and then I think you're required to have a public hearing period prior to approval.
Okay. All right. Next up is our consent agenda, which also includes the minutes from our January meeting. Are there any items there that we need to remove from the consent agenda for further consideration or discussion? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilman Basham to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Additional appropriations. Next, we have Magistrate Grant.
Yes. I make a motion to approve appropriation for courtroom reform grant 9550 for $40,000.
Second.
$40,000.
Oh, second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dahlem, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the Court Reform Grant Fund 9550 in the amount of $40,000. Discussion.
This is something, a grant that they are offered annually from the Office of Judicial Administration, and it's to improve the security at the courthouse.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have Fund 2507 for the prosecutor.
I make a motion to approve Prosecutor Drug Enforcement Fund 2507 appropriation for $11,000.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dahlem, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the Drug Enforcement Fund 2507 appropriation in the amount of $11,000. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the money that we received through court order, forfeitures mainly from drug dealers, the cash that's seized at the time of the arrest.
Okay. Any questions or discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have Fund 2560.
I make a motion to approve appropriation for User Fund Pretrial Diversion Fund 2560 for $10,000.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dahlem, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the pretrial Diversion Fund 2560 appropriation in the amount of $10,000. Discussion.
Thank you. I'll just talk about both of them because I'm hitting two funds here. When we moved in the building 4 or 5 years ago, the second floor, which houses our child support, the architect, we decided to leave it basically open. So when you go into that, it's just a long open space because we knew in the future we might have to expand. So that point has come. We need to go in there and basically build offices for additional staff, the lawyers, investigators. And I want to thank Tony Dildine for, he's unbelievable in working through these issues, and the commissioners. No county general fund will be spent. The cost of the remodel will be spent from our child support incentive fund, which I've gotten approval from Indianapolis, and also from our pretrial diversion fund, which is an internal fund. So there'll be no cost to taxpayers out of the general fund.
All right. Any questions or discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. And then obviously linked to that is the Fund 8897 appropriation.
I make a motion to approve Prosecutor 4D Incentive Fund 8897 appropriation for $90,000.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dahlem, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the 4D Incentive Fund 8897 appropriation in the amount of $90,000. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next, we have additional appropriation for the coroner.
We'll make the request for appropriation in the general fund of $1,000 in the amount of $3,200.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Vernon to approve the additional appropriation for the coroner for utilities in the amount of $3,200. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is for the Wi-Fi for our deputies that are out on the scene so they can utilize their tablets in a secured way. So that's what that's for.
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
So how many tablets are we supporting with this?
7.
Okay, and so this is like a cell phone service, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that is approved.
Thank you.
Next, we have a part-time salary statement for the surveyor.
Mr. President, I move that we look at the salary statement for a part-time project manager up to $45.
Second. I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Basham, a second from Councilman Richard to approve the part-time project manager salary statement up to $45 per hour. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see all of you. Real quickly, this is the project manager position / first deputy. So this is the second in command in my office. It is a professional position. Currently, longtime individual, Jim Butcher, he's been in the position since 2011, January 2011, actually. So he's getting ready to retire. He and I have spoke. He would like to work part-time to train whomever we hire into the position, so I'm viewing this also as a succession tool. So I'm happy to answer any of the questions. One other thing I'll tell you real quick, I can handle this inside the budget as already approved, so I don't see a need for any additional money. But I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'd seek your approval.
Okay.
Zach,
Yeah.
how many hours do you anticipate?
Right now, 2 days a week, so what, 15? Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have salary statement for the Community Corrections Executive Director.
Make a motion, we approve the salary statement for community corrections as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Vernon to approve the salary statement for the Executive Director of the Tippecanoe County Community Corrections. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're requesting, in the absence of a director, I'm presenting to classify the director as an Exec 1. The previous director submitted to WIS on his own accord in 2018-19 to request a reclassification, submitted ample documentation supporting so, including other salaries of the like around the state. At the time, WIS came back and said this should be reviewed for reclassification. Somewhere along the way, nothing was ever done with that. It was never sent through the processes. The Personnel Committee did vote to agree to an Exec 1 classification that comes with the educational requirement of a master's degree preferred, bachelor's degree required.
Okay. Any questions or discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that is approved. Next, we have salary statement, multiple ones for the Health Department.
Want to make a motion, we approve the salary statement for the Health Department as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the, am I getting this correct?
For all of them.
For all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, for all of the salary statements as presented for the Health Department. Discussion.
So I'm here to answer any questions, but I wanted to brief the council on how the process goes of requesting positions, just to remind everybody. When a department chooses to make new positions or reclassify a position, they update or write a new job description. That then comes to HR. I submit to WIS. WIS will typically take 2 weeks to come back with a classification suggestion and a published job description. At what point I get that back, the job description in the memo, which tells how WIS or why WIS came up with this classification, is then forwarded to that department. When it comes back, we go before Personnel Committee. Personnel Committee now meets every time council meets. We meet directly after council. and at what point the Personnel Committee approves a new position or reclassification. That then goes before Commissioners. If it's a new position, the position has to be created, and if it's just monetary, then it goes before Council. So that is how the process, otherwise I'm available to answer any questions on these positions.
So was this process followed with this?
Not to a T. It was a very messy, we started this process back in October.
Okay.
And we received job descriptions on multiple different dates. They each went to WIS. WIS then called and said, I can't follow this. This is way too messy. I need an org chart. We provided an org chart just a couple days later as the Health Department gave us that. The Personnel Committee did meet after we got about half of the descriptions back. At that time, we said we're going to hold until we get all of the descriptions back because we need the full picture of what is going on. This was a restructure of the Health Department. At what point we got all of the positions back, we then met again and made our final votes.
Okay, so these have all been approved by the Personnel Committee, but not all at one time.
Not all. In the end, we did do, by the second meeting, we voted again on every single position.
Okay.
So it was approved at one time.
Okay.
What was approved by the Personnel Committee is not to a degree 100% what has come forward. For example, the exempt status on some positions was not approved by the committee initially, and there are 2 positions that have not come before council that were approved by the committee.
They were approved, though, by the committee?
They were approved by the committee. The department decided not to take those 2 positions.
Okay. But everything that's before us today has been approved by the committee,
Yes, position-wise, yes.
but not salary-wise.
Not all of,
So
yes. The salary on that is correct.
Okay.
Basically, Lisa, everything you see is correct, other than the administrative assistant, which is listed as a comment 4, and I'm going off of all my notes, and it came before our commissioner's office. I thought it was supposed to be a 5. Jennifer thought it was supposed to be a 4.
I thought it was a 4.
Katie thought it was supposed to be Sadie thought it was supposed to be a 4, went back to her notes, and it should have been a 5. So it was a split vote that we had on that one position. It's showing up here as a 4. My notes show it as a 5. I remember it was like a 3-2 vote on that. The reason behind this, if you look at the organizational chart, and you look where the administrative assistant is, the person right below them is a comment 4. So you now have an administrator getting the exact same pay as the 2 people below them working. So that's why we kind of discussed it going a 5 versus a 4. So that's the only one. All the others that are close to here are exactly what my notes are, but that's the only one that I have questions on. And there's others that attended the meeting, so whether their notes are different than mine, that's what we came up.
Discussion.
My question is, when I look at this list, and I know part of the discussion was the classification, but I know the other part of the discussion, the big discussion, was overtime. Are these exempt or not exempt employees? And what I'm hearing is what we're seeing right now is not what, when I walked out the door on the 9th, that I voted for. And so now what changes are on this sheet that I'm going to vote for in regards to the overtime status? What has changed since the 9th?
So the medical director position came back from WIS, recommended as a PAT 5 classification, exempt. That one has been negotiated to become non-exempt to allow for overtime. The remaining positions on your list are as classified. The position that did not come through, one of the positions that did not come through was the Director of Finance and Community Engagement. That position would replace the executive assistant position. The classification of the executive assistant is a PAT 3. The Director of Finance and Community Engagement came back as a PAT 3, but it came back exempt. The Executive Assistant is non-exempt. So it was negotiated to keep the Executive Assistant PAT 3 non-exempt to allow for overtime. The Administrator position is the other position that was negotiated not to move forward. That position is currently an Exec 2 exempt, and it came back from WIS, I believe, at a PAT 5 exempt, and that's a much lower salary. So it was negotiated to not move forward with the reclass of the Administrator after the Personnel Committee.
I'm very confused. It sounds like you've changed a lot of things since the Personnel Committee met.
That would be correct.
And so it's coming to us and it hasn't been approved by the Personnel Committee. Is that a lot of the changes? Not everything, but some of the changes.
Some of the changes were changed post-Personnel Committee without
So why
another
is
formal meeting.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question. Why is it coming before us and it hasn't been approved by the Personnel? Why are we not following the process? Is there a reason for that, or?
It's a push for time because we already have the grants, is my understanding.
Okay.
Two of the positions, the case abstractor, maternal interviewer, and the FEMR director, we received those grants back in October. That was never disclosed to the Personnel Committee to start that process any earlier for those to begin October 1. The rest of the positions, we've already received the grant, and it's a push to proceed, not only because of the grants we received, but because of the QCC contract ending with Community Corrections, and to begin serving corrections in a medical capacity.
And the implications if we don't approve this today and say we want it to be approved by the Personnel Committee, because I would like the process to be followed.
The implication is we push back another month.
Another month doing the
Dr.
services to the community and getting people hired.
Yeah, Dr. Loomis would have to speak directly
Okay.
on the impact to his department.
Okay.
Additional questions or discussion?
So what I'm hearing, and those who sat on the Personnel Committee, the one position that is listed today as a comment 4 should be a comment 5, and everything was approved in a roundabout way.
Yes, that position was recommended by WIS as a comment 4.
Okay.
The Personnel Committee, Dr. Loomis came to us with a list after all the results came in and requested different classifications than what WIS had recommended. And essentially, we said, no, we need to go by what WIS recommended. We would discredit the Personnel Committee, WIS as a whole, might as well just deband the whole thing if we're going to allow departments to classify however they please. So at the end of the day, the Personnel Committee said, we need to go by recommendation. Somewhere along the way with the conversations that occurred after the Personnel Committee is where the confusion came in on that position being a comment 4 versus a comment 5.
Would Dr. Loomis like to have some input so we could see from the department head?
Absolutely. Sadie presented everything perfectly fine. The problem is that right now we have a situation, and I would prefer to talk about this in closed session if you would like, but I'm more than happy to talk about it here. What would you like me to do?
Well, I think for us to take an educated vote on it, we'd like to hear from you.
Okay. The positions we have are, we need to take care of corrections. Right now, we have 168 people, and we have nobody to take care of them other than myself and Kayla, who's building up overtime hours, and one nurse that we've just hired for days. So we're leaving a lot of that time uncovered. So these positions were put into place to try to get these done quickly, as we talked about in the last meeting. So I would appreciate it if we could get these passed so that at least we can continue to move in the direction of, we've hired one, correct, Amanda? Yes. We've hired one person, right?
Yes, one public health nurse has been filled.
And we have one that she hired yesterday,
Okay.
a QMA.
Okay.
So we do have people that we are in the process of hiring to fill these positions, but we need these positions to continue filling those positions to cover corrections. If any of you have been over to corrections, you understand that the medical part of this is really important. And Kelly has given me some incredible leeway to do what we need to do to get that place correct And I've looped Doug in on a lot of this as well. And Randy Vonderheide is also aware of some of the situation that has existed over there. So to get proper coverage, you know, as Commissioner Richard pointed out last time, this was an emergent situation, and it still remains that way. So
And you are in favor of, as presented, all of the positions and salaries for what's been presented to us? You're good with that?
Yes, I'm good. Am I good with that, Sadie?
You and I are not on the same page on that topic.
Well, I understand, because at this particular point, there has to be a little bit of understanding that because of the time crunch that we had to take over with QCC, we had to do a little lateral movement that unfortunately was not part of standard operating procedure. And this is one of these times that I would ask that you consider doing a little lateral movement on this. If not, then I don't know how we can continue covering corrections.
And all of these positions are covered by the grant, so it's imperative we take advantage of that, and it's not coming out of the general budget. So I would be very much in support of that and hope that we can get this passed today.
Yeah, and if not, we're going to have to work something out with QCC or another firm to cover corrections, because we can't do it right now. It's getting to the point where it's virtually impossible, unless any of you would like to come and help me pass meds and take care of some of these people, which I don't think any of you are qualified to do. So, yeah, and I'm also getting help not only from Kayla, myself, my wife Ann, who's a nursing professor at Purdue, has been helping on the weekends, and that's just not acceptable.
No. Thank you. That's very well said.
Can you help me understand why we're in February, and we talked about this last month, and we're still, is there a particular, I'm a little frustrated because we have a process, it's been 4 months, we have a process, there's a very good reason for that, because we want to be consistent, we want to be fair, we want to do the best job with the money that we've been tasked to be responsible with. And I also want to get the services out to the citizens and the residents of this community. And I don't understand why a month later, we're still having this conversation. Because I don't think that I don't understand that, so.
I'm not going to discuss this in a public forum. I'll be happy to discuss it with you privately.
Other discussion?
I guess my concern is, I'm hearing now that the council didn't know about the grant in October, that there was the sense of urgency. And I think if we would have known, maybe we could have followed our procedure and got to the point where we want to get to. Because I think that, this with all my scribbles, there's no issue with the programming and what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish and trying to be the best health department in the state of Indiana that we can be. And as you say, Dr. Loomis, the #2 largest health department in the state of Indiana. And I think what we're doing is very innovative, and I appreciate your innovation, but I think that we've got a process in place. And last month, we deviated from our process because there was a sense of urgency. And now again, we have a sense of urgency. And we have a sense of urgency and have a sense of urgency. And I think we need to bring everything together and start following the procedures that are set in place so that we can be the best that we can be and do everything that you want to do in the time frame that you want to do. And I know that government doesn't move as fast as an operating room when you need something. But the fact is that we've got this in place, and if we deviate, then what kind of precedent are we setting? And that's my concern with this process.
And I will not discuss that in a public forum. I will be happy to give you, anybody that knows me knows that I do not prepare at the last minute. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
I would just like to add to it is that with grants and the every kind of changing health needs and health department, requirements and so forth, it's a moving target, and we should not let a technicality overrule the needs of the community or best serve the community. So again, I think that we need to take into consideration what's best for the community and the citizens of the community and put that in forefront to support what the department head would like.
During
Judy.
this discussion, obviously not all these positions are the question, right? There's some of them that have gone through the process, been approvals, and one in particular that there's confusion on. Can we pull that one out and approve the others and have the other one go back to the personnel committee? Can we do that, or is that possible?
It could be done.
I think there's the one in question, but then there's the one that was changed after the Personnel Committee in regards to the exempt or non-exempt status. And I think that we came to a rectification or on the comment 5, because I think that it was, in my notes, I have a comment 5 as well.
Okay.
And I think I think there was the change after that. So it's that one's okay.
Okay.
It's changing of the exempt versus non-exempt.
And I think that's a good suggestion, Councilwoman Hamilton. I would like to ask all of you to join me. I would like to bring you up to speed on what the Health Department is doing, because apparently the communications that I've sent have not been passed on to all of you, Councilwoman Dome and others that did not receive what I asked to be passed on to you in September. And I would like to bring you up to speed so you know what antics I'm up to and what we're trying to do with the governor's money for public health in this community. But the dynamics that you're asking me to speak to right now, I will not speak to in a public forum. I do not prepare lightly for anything, and I haven't in 40 years as a physician. I know process, I know how to follow process, and had there been a mechanism in place for conversation, we would not be having this conversation today. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from council?
So there would be 2 positions we would move out? Is that something we would make a motion on?
If that's the desire of the council, that's what we would need to do, is set aside the 2 that you want, or however many.
Dr. Loomis, if we went in that direction, what would that do to services for that one position or the 2?
Give me that again, Councilman Murray.
Yes, sir. The 2 positions that we're debating about in terms of the process and making sure we're correct, if those were to be removed today or tabled, what would that do to the services to the community?
So I believe the 2 positions you're speaking about are the health officer's administrative assistant. That was the classification.
Correct.
Confusion. The second one would be the medical director, and that was the FLSA confusion on the status there. So
That one you got
they're
resolved.
asking
Right.
what would be the
No,
impact if
this
we
didn't
don't
get that.
proceed with this position and this position.
The one, we pretty much resolved, but this is the
I think we're going to be back to square one, Councilman
Gotcha.
Murray.
I wanted to hear from you that.
Yeah,
that's-
no, I appreciate that question, but right now, position, why is this so small, Katie? Can you
Sorry.
blow this up?
I cannot, or I don't know how. The medical director position would be of most importance to you.
Both of them are important to me because the one that was, I was under the impression that it was a ComMod 5. Maybe I misunderstood, but I had written in my notes the day after I spoke to Sadie that was a ComMod 5, and I may have made a mistake. I doubt it. But the medical director position, I can't, you can live without me, but you can't live without her. Right now,
Sorry, it would be worth noting that the restructure of the health department, the administrator would oversee the environmental and pools and food side. The medical director would oversee the medical side, including the care given by at corrections. So that is why that position is of great importance.
Okay.
So the answer is no. We have to approve it all or none.
Can I amend my original motion?
Yes.
I'd like to amend the original motion to approve all positions as presented, except the health officer administrative assistant, change that to a comment 5. Is that the correct one?
That needs to be a comment 5.
Okay, and that's what I'm making the amendment for.
Okay, what about the,
The administrative
yeah, the
assistant.
administrative assistant, I think is the one you mean.
Yeah, the comment 5.
Yeah, and what about the medical director position?
Are you keeping that exempt or non-exempt?
The medical director's question on the exempt status. It was
And
recommended.
where did the personnel committee land on that in the final say?
At the original vote, we landed on, as was recommended, exempt. Conversations proceeding, it's my understanding that it landed on exempt, non-exempt. Kathy, am I correct?
Yes, the original vote after the council meeting was to keep it exempt, meaning no overtime. Then on the 10th, there's a string of emails where there was an email vote, and because there was a negotiation, that it was changed to non-exempt, meaning they get overtime.
And I have no problem. If you want to talk about why the negotiations ensued, I don't care. Talk about it. Doesn't matter to me.
No, just stating a fact. Is that, wow, that's how it happened.
I have no problem talking about why those negotiations started.
Okay, and then I would also amend, along with moving health officer management assistant to comment 5, the medical director, Pat 5, to not exempt. Yeah, that's where the personnel committee landed at the end.
At the end.
Okay, I'm respecting the personnel committee's decision on that.
Okay, so Jody, are you
Yep.
okay with that change to the motion? Yes. So are we all
Before
clear?
you vote, President Underwood,
Yes.
may I ask for an executive session with all of you? I think that's overdue. In fact, I'm insisting on,
Yeah,
I think
I
under
think
Robert's
with
Rule of Order, I
transparency,
have
we
that
should
right
allow
to
that.
ask for that position, that session. Doug?
Well, you got to give public notice. You need
Yes.
48 hours. What are we doing here?
I would like to ask for an executive session. I understand it's 48 hours, but I'd like to ask for an executive session with the county council.
I mean, you can ask for it, and then depending what they're going to discuss, it might be something that the statute allows. I guess where I'm confused is, are you saying that needs to happen before they can approve the positions?
No.
What's that?
No,
Oh, okay. So
no,
that's separate from the motion on the floor.
correct. I just want to make
All
sure that
right,
that's
so
taken up.
that's, yeah, they can do that.
All right, fine.
Okay. Any other discussion before we vote? Are we clear on what the motion is? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to declare that it has been approved with those changes. Okay, next up, we have the Fund 4009 appropriation for the sheriff.
Yes, I make a motion for the Sheriff's Sale Administrative Fund 4009 appropriation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the Sheriff's Sale Administration Fund 4009 appropriation in the amount of $20,000. Discussion.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I'm completely confused. No, not about this. Anyway, this is so we can have our sheriff's sales, is to pay SRI, and then return each sale, we get $300 back.
Okay, any discussion or questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why do I have commissary report as a line item?
The commissary report's something that the sheriff's department's required to submit, I think, twice a year, so you should just note that the commissary report has been filed.
Okay, all right. Commissary report has been filed, so council's duly noted. Committee reports. Any to come before us this morning? Any unfinished business or new business? Commissioner FYI.
Good morning again. Just two things for your calendar. On February the 22nd, GLC is sponsoring the State of the Cities and Counties. That's an annual event in which the President of the Commissioners and the two mayors speak on the status and the state of the cities and counties. This year's format is going to be a slight modification of what we did last year, in that President Mung Chiang is going to MC kind of a roundtable fireside chat kind of thing. So it should be interesting, and it's going to be at the fairgrounds, again, sponsored by GLC, so tickets can be obtained through GLC's website. Also, GLC is hosting a legislative update session every other Friday. The next one is the following day, which is February the 23rd, and the county has 2 extra seats. If any of you would ever want to attend that, it's really informative. All of our legislators are there talking about their particular pieces of legislation and issues that are coming up in regard to votes at the State House. So if you have any interest in attending that, let me know.
Thank you, Tom. Any public comment to come before us this morning?
Hi, I'm Monica Casanova. I'm your Fairfield Township trustee. Last week, I was here at a meeting with the assessor who discussed a new law where we could potentially lose millions, maybe more in assessed valuation. I just wanted to get a sense from council if you guys have considered doing anything or addressing this new law that will negatively impact all units of government financially.
I can speak what I've done, because Monica, I attended that meeting as well. I know you were there and several other council and commissioners and many other people. I have reached out to a variety of organizations that have people down at the State House to basically garner the professional organizations to kind of reach support in hopes that legislatively it can get amended, the law, through a variety of different angles, through the schools, through City Bus, through other organizations, beyond just county government. So that's what I've done to try and help garner support for that. And that's all I've done to date. I've educated people who've asked. I've kind of brought it up to discussion to those who may not be in the understanding of government and the happenings of everyday stuff, to let them know what's going on. So that's what I've done so far.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that or if there's been any movement. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Our next meeting is March 12th, and if there's nothing else, I'll take the last motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.